Today's topic is a very important question, a topic that we discuss in our spiritual life. Why we meditate. Swami Vivekananda gives a graphic picture of the evolution of spiritual life. He says, spiritual life has 4 different stages of evolution and growth. At the grossest level, when we begin our spiritual life, or religious life for that matter, we come together in a congregation or a group, and then we discuss spiritual matters, and then we mechanically perform certain rituals, ceremonies. This is the first stage of human endeavor in spiritual life. In all traditions, in all cultures, this is a common feature that we all begin with the grossest rather. Because at the primary stage of spiritual life, we cannot hope to think of the transcendental, the nominal, or the fundamental questions of existence of God. But rather we conform to certain rituals and customs. This is a very important stage because without entering the kindergarten, we cannot start our education. At the next stage, we try to find some justification, some philosophical explanation for many of the rituals and ceremonies. At this stage, mostly ceremonies and rituals are performed more or less in a mechanical way, without much deeper insight. But it is certainly very good because we are able to focus on certain higher ethical, moral, universal values when we perform even the grossest of religious or spiritual rituals or ceremonies. At the next stage, we try to give a mythological justification for many of these customs and rituals, which are mostly related to the socio-anthropological stage of human civilization. Socio-anthropological, cultural, linguistic, and so on. That's why in all spiritual traditions, in all religious traditions, you find there are rituals and also there are certain belief systems and customs which are not necessarily very universal, which are relevant only in a particular culture or a tradition, which are socio-anthropological or cultural in scope and possibilities. At the third stage, which is a higher stage, we try to think of the higher, the transcendental, the beyond, think of God, some ontological questions of existence, the nature of being, the meaning of life, the nature of the absolute reality, God, and so on, where we evolve a particular intellectual mechanism to understand the absolute reality that lies beyond the present empirical life. So this is a stage of theology and philosophy. Theology has a mythological dimension, but it also has a philosophical dimension. At the philosophical level, there are many universal aspects found in all theological traditions, all philosophical traditions, related to religious life. See, for example, what's the nature of God? The compassion, the mercy, the omnipresence, the omnipotence, the omniscience, the immanence and the transcendence of some supernatural, supreme reality. We posit, we try to philosophically analyze. This is a very high stage of human civilization. At this stage, we write books. Great theologians and philosophers wrote books trying to explain God, His ways, the meaning of creation, the meaning of life, the relationship between God and man and human beings, and the relationship between the universe and God, and the significance of creation. All these higher ideas are intellectually, philosophically analyzed in religious traditions at the philosophical stage. The fourth stage is the highest stage. That is the stage of experience. In fact, Vivekananda made a very radical, he gave a very radical definition to the very meaning of religion. It is one of the most revolutionary definitions that he gave to religion. He said, religion is experience. Now, in a way, this idea is found in all religious scriptures. In fact, the greatest men and women who practice religion in all traditions, Hinduism, Christianity, Judaism, everywhere, Buddhism, they all had some kind of experience, and they proclaimed that it is this experience that gave them an insight into the true nature of God, the Creator God. But frequently, they often came in conflict with the theologians and philosophers. And also, they came in conflict with those who upheld the view that a mechanical ritual or mechanical belief is the essence of religion. So, there was always a degree of intolerance towards those who insisted, who also practiced the idea that religion is experience. But in modern times, Vivekananda gave a revolutionary definition which is already ingrained in the teachings of the great mystics like Acharya or Saint Abel of Teresa, the great saints and sages of the Upanishads and Vedas. It is all inherent in their writings and in their life. But he gave that experience is the only ultimate criterion for spiritual wisdom. In fact, religion is experience. That's what he said. Religion is a manifestation of divinity already in man or human beings, so to speak. So we may start with a ritual or a ceremony, where I may go to a temple or a church or a synagogue or a Buddhist temple. I may go there. I may perform certain rituals which may be different from those who go to a different kind of place of worship. And I may read one book which may be slightly different in the content from the books of other religious traditions. So there are differences. But all these differences vanish when we converge, when we reach the level of inner inherent experience. At that stage, religion becomes spirituality. In other words, religion reaches the level of experience. Now, this experience level can never be reached unless we turn the inquiry inward. We start asking the question in complete solitude, not in a congregation, not in a hall where 10,000 people may be praying loudly. No. That won't give us a peep, a glimpse into what we really are, or what the true nature of God is. For that, We have to be alone in our own company. We should be away, as you say, from the maddening crowd, so to speak, to use a popular expression. Now, you always find great men and women in all religious traditions who tried to turn the inquiry inward. In other words, who try to meditate. So meditation is the ultimate path to the journey back home, to understand our true nature. To be spiritual, we have to meditate. And to meditate, we should be in total solitude. Please don't misunderstand me. Not that we cannot meditate in a big hall. It's true. In a big hall, we can meditate. We can meditate in the company of maybe tens of thousands of people. But the higher meditation, the journey back home, the search for our own inner reality can be reached only in total solitude. Because spiritual life is all about trying to control and sublimate our mind. We can control our physical mechanism. We can control the most powerful machine that human brain can conceive of, can invent. We can control the most powerful natural phenomena. We know very well how a supercomputer functions because the supercomputer has only borrowed intelligence. It doesn't have its own mind. Its mind it got from a scientist who invented that. So also a mighty Robert. But we cannot actually predict how our own mind is going to function. We can never do that. There comes the relevance of meditation. Meditation, in short, is nothing but an attempt to understand what we are, what our mind is. And this is possible when mind is linked to something that is beyond mind. We cannot control mind at the mental level. We can only control mind at a level that goes beyond mind. In the Bhagavad Gita, for those of you who are interested, you can just keep in mind, in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, from 55th verse to 72nd verse, in 18 verses, there is a graphic description of what it means to have a healthy mind. If you read the work, you find it's called the characteristics of an illumined person, spiritually elevated person. That's how the particular part of the text is called. But it is nothing but a description of what it means to have a healthy mind. So there you find that the student asks one question: how does a person who has a healthy mind, how does he function in this world? How does he move about? How does he talk? How does he interact with other people? Siddhaprajnasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava siddhi kim prabhashida kim asida vrajeda kim. Like that, Arjuna asks a question. And in answer to this, in the 54th verse, Arjuna asked this question. And in answer to this, from 55th verse onwards, the Prajaghadi yada kaman sarvan parthamanogadan atmanne vatmana tushtasthita prajnastadochide. Like that, definitions, 18 definitions of healthy mindedness. Characteristics are given. A man of healthy mindedness, a healthy minded person is one who is contented within himself and who has no desire. who is always active. It is very good, very easy, one may suppose, that if you can remain in a corner, remote corner, without doing anything, physically and mentally inactive, like a stone, that's a state of no. One should be always active in the world. One should be extremely sensitive. It is not killing of human sensitivity. It is not negation of human impulses, but rather it is transcending the vagaries of human mind, transcending the vagaries of sensory experiences. When mind becomes integrated, an integrated harmonious whole, that person doesn't have to go outside of his own mind in search of comfort. That is, Atmani eva atmana tushtaha. That is a famous definition. There are many 18 verses which contain several definitions, but 18 broad definitions. And the most important characteristic is when a person is contented within himself. When we look for contentment, we often go for some tangible objects. A poor man imagines that he can be happy, contented, satisfied when he gets rich. People think when they become famous, they feel they can be contented. So, contentment or satisfaction in the normal and context means getting something that we do not already possess. But a trillionaire may be trying to make $1 more million. The richest man in the world may be trying to make a few $100 more. The strongest wrestler may be he is always afraid that another man will defeat him. So there is a long verse in the rich man is afraid of poverty and thief. The famous man is afraid of notoriety. One day, another man, a woman, can become more famous. Like that, at empirical level, there is no contentment. So Lord Krishna says, Atmani eva atmana tushtaka. Within ourselves, without going outside of ourselves, sitting where we are, enjoying what we have got, we become contented. That is the most visible sign of a psychologically, a mentally healthy person. And mental health is the ultimate and maybe the simplest gifts of practices like meditation. Now, this is possible only when we, as I said earlier, move away from the maddening crowd. In the Gita, in the 6th chapter, there are some very interesting descriptions of the process of meditation. Please remember that different concepts of meditation that we learn from Shunyavada school of Buddhism and Vijnanavada school, the two idealistic schools of Buddhist philosophy. Of later Buddhism is called, one is Shunyavada, the doctrine of emptiness, and other one is the doctrine of subjective idealism, the doctrine based upon the impermanence or the momentariness of external objects is called subjective idealism. All these meditative techniques come from one source, the Vedas, the Upanishads. And to be more accurate, it comes from another source, the Gita, Bhagavad Gita, which is a commentary on the Upanishads and Vedas. If you have time to know, to inquire, you can go to a bookstore and get a copy of Dhammapada, which is one of the most prominent, one of the most wonderful gift of Buddhist philosophy, Dhammapada. In Dhammapada, there are innumerable, like Gita, definitions of who is a man of wisdom. Tam bruhi brahmanam. That is how these verses end. Him I call a brahmana. Brahmana means man of wisdom, woman of wisdom, so to speak. Person who has reached spiritual wisdom through meditation. All those definitions, more or less, correspond to the 18 definitions that you find in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita from 55th to 72nd verse. Almost identical. So all the commentators will compare this with the Gita. Now, in the Gita, there is a very interesting description of how we go about meditation. The verse is this 10th verse of 6th chapter. Yogi yunjida sadadam atmanam rahasi sthidakha ekaki yata chittatma nirashihi aparigraha. It's a verse, the 10th verse of the 6th chapter of the Gita. There, Shankaracharya, the commentator on this verse, says, Yogi is a one who meditates. That's a very important point we should remember. Yogi, according to Vedantic tradition, is a person who meditates. A meditator is called a yogi. That's why Shankaracharya explains, Yogi dhyayi. Dhyayi means the one who does dhyanam, meditation. Yogi dhyayi yunjida samadadhyat satadam sarvada atmanam antakaranam rahasi ekante giri guhado sthida san ekaki asahayaka. Very interesting definition. He uses the word rahasi means in solitude. So who is the spiritual seeker who actually meditate, or how should we meditate? Explanation is ekagi, you should be alone in your own company. Second important characteristic, it should be in solitude. See, very often you find in yoga centers, I have the privilege to give classes in many yoga centers before coming out to this country. Many of them run by modern specialists. So some of the yoga teachers used to tell me, when they try to ask people to sit and meditate, and when they ask them, you should sit straight with neck, body, and head all in straight line. Then some of them sit with so much of effort, with bulging muscles, because it's almost like a gymnastic exercise. The effect is just the opposite. Because one important characteristic of real meditation is we should be relaxed. Mind should be relaxed. If one can remain straight and relaxed, then we can meditate. This relaxation is possible only in solitude. Secondly, when people face some other complications like conflicts and so on, they may not try to express it when they sit in a group, in a huge crowd. There'll be others will be making fun of you. But when you sit in your own company, not in the company of others, then you don't have to convince anybody. You can be in the company of your own mind and ultimately in the company of God. That's why the Gita says meditation should be done in solitude to be really effective. Other meditative techniques are very good. They can give us relaxation, peace of mind. That is true. Breathing, all these can help us to regulate the mind. To some extent, we will be able to reduce the stress level, the level of tension, inner tension. But the higher meditation is possible only when we sit alone and in solitude. So, Lord Krishna himself was the first great teacher who gave how we should sit while meditating. Remember, Gita is 3,500 years BC, so you have to remember. he gives a graphic description of how we should sit even. Samankaya shirogrivam dharayan achalam sthiraka sampreksha nasigagram swam disascha anavalokaya. This is the definition. Now, here the description is about a yogi, you should remember. But yogi is one who meditates, because nobody can be yogi without meditating. And meditation eventually, invariably, takes us to the highest experience of yoga. So there, Lord Krishna says, one should sit straight. Body, head and neck should be made erect and unshaking. And then, sometimes those of you who read this later will see. Sampreksha nasigagram swam. This is Anavalokaya. The description is very interesting. You should gaze steadily at the tip of your nose. It is stated here. And just giving a glimpse of some of the intricacies of meditation which are found in some of the ancient original scriptures, where meditation was for the first time explained in graphic style and language. Now, Lord Krishna says, you should be looking at the tip of the nose. That's what the verse literally means. But the great commentator who revealed this great gift of Bhagavad Gita to the world, because it was Shankaracharya, the commentator, who is responsible for the reason that we are reading Gita today, because without his commentary, Gita would have remained unknown. Nobody would have bothered about this text if Shankaracharya had not written a commentary in the 8th century. Now Shankaracharya says that, see, it doesn't mean that you should be looking at the tip of the nose. The idea is one should not close the eyes, but one should not keep the eyes wide open. If you keep the eyes wide open, then external visual objects will disturb the mind. Instead of meditating on Atman, which is the purpose of meditation, our own inner effulgent reality, divine reality within the Atman, instead of that, we will be meditating upon an external, a visible, a visual object. So, to avoid that, we should not keep the eyes wide open. We should not stare at anything. At the same time, we should not close the eyes. A person or a spiritual seeker who is not fully established in meditation, if he sits and closes his or her eyes, he'll be meditating on darkness, pitch darkness. That's also against the purpose of meditation. Meditation should be on either a great spiritual ideal or a great spiritual symbol like Om, which represents the whole existence, the past, present and future, which represents the omnipresent, all-pervading, supreme reality, which is immanent and present in the whole creation. So, Shankaracharya, I'm just giving an example. He explains as if looking at the tip of the nose. Your eye should converge, but should not be seeing the tip of the nose, but rather one should look straight. Eyes should not be completely closed, should be wide open. So if one sits there with eyes converging on one point, straight ahead, we are able to turn our own attention inward, because the 5 senses of perception are not bringing external visual sensations within. So the attention, the focus of meditation is turned inward. Therefore, Shankaracharya says, Atmanihi manasa samadhanam vakshadi atmasamstha manakrutva idi. Tasman iva shabdalopena akshnoho drishti sannipada eva sampreksha idi uchyate. The simple point is this: one should sit straight, one should completely focus on our own inner spiritual reality, the Atman. For that, we should not keep the eyes closed, we should not keep the eyes wide open either. Now, this is the principle of meditation. Now, in yogic tradition, this meditation has got a different approach. Of course, the same subject, the same topic, but approached from a different angle. The yoga, the great philosophers like Patanjali, Vyasa, who wrote the Bhashya on the Patanjali Yoga Sutras and so on, they analyzed and described the same process of meditation from a more physical, from rather a gross angle, but the implication, the central theme is the same. According to Patanjali's system, yoga has got 8 limbs. Beginning yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Of these, the last 3 limbs, factors, this dharana, dhyana and samadhi, they constitute one whole which takes us to the highest yogic experience. Of these 3, the first one is dharana, which means focusing or fixing the mind on the same object, the ability to draw the mind away from external objects and fixing the mind on one central object. The object need not be a visible object, but rather it could be our own Atman, our own mind. Meditating on one's own mind enables you to go beyond mind. Because when you succeed in objectifying your own mind as the object of meditation, then whatever happens in your mind becomes a drama taking place in front of you, and you yourself become the spectator. And you yourself is the Atman, and mind is nothing but a player who is playing a drama on the stage. So if we can witness the play of our own mind, the sensations, the tendencies, the impressions, the thought currents that emerge in our own mind in a very detached, non-attached way, then mind will not be able to control us. We will be able to control the mind. Then mind becomes a friend. When we are able to control the mind, when we are free from the tyranny of the thought currents and sensations that emerge from the mind, then mind is your best friend. So the best way to convert your own mind to your friend is not to pamper that, not to pamper it. If you try to pamper the mind, it becomes a merciless, cruel, bloodthirsty tyrant. In the Gita, it is said, Bandhuratma atmanastasya, yenatmaya atmana kritaka. So, there are many statements, Uddhareva atmanatmanam na atmanam avasadhi. Atmaiva hyatmanu bandhu atmaiva ripuratmana. It's a famous verse in the Gita. It literally means this. Mind can be your best friend, your guide, your philosopher. The one who takes you, guides you, helps you in your problems, conflicts, and in your tragedies. It consoles you when you confront a tragedy. The same mind can be a merciless, cruel tyrant, a dictator. If you pamper your mind, you just watch, and if mind tells you to do that, immediately you do that. We do that often. We often obey the mind to avoid tension. Tension or conflict arises when mind tells you something and you don't do that. But very often, complete obedience to the mind, allowing the mind to become a dictator, is the best way to turn the mind to our enemy. Mind becomes a most merciless, cruel enemy when we allow the mind to dictate terms to us. On the other hand, if we can watch the mind, listen to its vagaries, fragmented thought currents, impulses. At the same time, don't be swept off your feet by what mind tells you. Just watch how it functions, but don't be swayed, don't be influenced. Watch it as you watch a drama that's going on the stage. Then mind will not be your enemy. That's an interesting aspect of human mind. Meditation is nothing but an attempt to turn the mind into our enemy. We should not antagonize the mind. That again creates tension. We should not pamper the mind. That will create the situation, that make the situation much worse. So mind should be dealt with as an irrelevant intruder into your room. You don't fight with him, but you don't try to drive him out of your room. You come, you can sit here, but don't disturb me. You can have your way. If you can tell your mind to remain with you, but don't bother you much, if you can remain detached in your interaction with the mind will not bother us. Mind doesn't become our enemy. Now, when we achieve this goal, we are able to keep our mind fixed on some spiritual ideal. And this is called dharana. The first stage in achieving samyama means the three stages, the last three stages of yoga: dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. So that's why it is called deshabandhaka chittasya dharana. That is the definition of Patanjali. Means mind doesn't go anywhere else. You are able to fix it. Why? Because mind was trying to drive you in all directions. You did not allow yourself to be driven by the mind in all directions. So mind will stop trying to drag you in all directions. At that stage, you'll be able to keep the mind fixed on one object. And this is called dharana. Now, if we can continue fixing the mind on one ideal, that's called meditation or dhyana. So, frequently, when we use the word meditation, the English word, we normally mean dharana, not dhyana. We are making an effort to fix the mind on some higher ideal. That's actually the beginning of the process of meditation. So real meditation is called dhyanam in Sanskrit, which is the goal, the ultimate goal to be reached by constant practice of dharana, which is fixing the mind on a goal. So tatra pratyeganata, that is dhyanam. That is pratyasya ekatanata, means pratyega, the ability to allow the mind fixed on one object. That is pratyasya ekatanata. The same concentration, the same fixing of the mind should continue for a long time. That is meditation. When we meditate, what really happens is, first of all, the mind slowly begins to become friendly towards ourselves. That's the first sign of real meditation. If we feel an inner peace and also a harmony in our interaction with others, that's a real sign of success in meditation. It doesn't mean that all external problems get solved. We should not imagine that when we start meditation, all problems come to an end. Rather, our approach to the problems that we confront in our daily life undergoes a radical change. Once we understand this relative world in which we are living can never be perfect. The relative can never be perfect. Only the absolute can be perfect. So, momentariness, changeability, fragmentation, conflicts, all these are natural characteristics, features of anything that is relative and imperfect. Once we understand that, we start thinking of something that goes beyond the relative, that something beyond this impermanent, beyond the momentary, beyond the transitory. We start thinking of something which is permanent, which is not transitory, which is always eternal, which is permanent, which doesn't change. And once we realize that it is our own Atman, and when we try to practice fixing of the mind on that Atmanhood, the permanence of our own real inner self, then the vagaries, the fragmentations, the changes, the conflicts in this relative world will become a lesser problem. That's what really happens. So we are able to watch all these as a spectator sitting in the gallery watching a drama unfolding in front of us. That's why Lord Krishna says one important characteristic of a person who meditates is this. He is able to find contentment within himself, not in the relative world. And such a person can live in this world, go about his business, be active, do his duties and perform his responsibilities, at the same time can do all this without any inner conflict. So Gita itself compares the mind of such an accomplished meditator to an ocean. Hundreds of rivers empty their waters to the ocean. The ocean is not affected. The ocean remains more or less the same. The ocean doesn't get overflowing just because rivers are flowing, bringing waters to the ocean. The ocean remains unaffected. The ocean doesn't ask the rivers to bring water. The ocean doesn't reject the waters that are flowing towards it. It neither rejects nor goes out of its way to welcome it. Rather, it remains unaffected. So, this approach of unaffectedness, the ability to watch everything that takes place in the relative world as a drama unfolding in front of us, that's a real purpose of meditation. But in Vedantic tradition, this is possible when we identify ourselves with something that is immortal and eternal and non-momentary. If the drama that is unfolding in front of us, all the conflicts and vagaries are subject to change, we should remain changeless because we are the Atman. We are the omnipresent, immanent reality, which is eternal, remains the same, which is not subject to changes. It remains the same in the past, present, and future. In the waking state, dream state, and deep sleep state, it remains the same. When we identify ourselves with this Atman, with this immortal reality, divine principle which is omnipresent and eternal, then the changing world will not affect us. That's why it is said that the true sign of healthy mindedness is the ability to watch the whole drama of life in this world as a play unfolding in front of us. We are only spectators, we are not players in the drama. That's the real significance of meditation. To achieve this, we meditate, because when we may pray in a big group, we may perform an external ritual. All this we may do. But that's not the beginning of the journey inward. The real spiritual journey begins when we sit ourselves in a solitude and turn the attention inward. Because the conflicts and problems arise only when we are alone. And the solution also can be found only in solitude. That's why Lord Krishna says meditation should be done in solitude. So it's a topic discussed elaborately in innumerable texts. I just was trying to give a bird view of some basic concepts. Thank you. Namaskar. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om.